So let's get started here. We've got half an hour and a lot to cover. So what we're going to talk today about is catalyzing innovation. We have the honor at Gensler to work with many global headquarters, and we work with the CEOs. They're betting on their workplace to build on their incredible history to drive them into the future. And how do we do that? I think I have to grab the clicker here. Um, Okay, so just a little bit about my background. I am a registered architect, but when I joined Gensler's office in Tampa, 19 years ago now, they only had interior design. So I had this amazing opportunity to work in workplace with a firm that was founded doing only corporate workplace. Since then, many of you have been through our airports. We have 33 practice areas, but we really were founded and grew up as a workplace firm, and so it's an incredible point of passion for us. But getting back to the office and the role for the office, as our employees return, and many, we hear it in the news every day, right? Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase is bringing everybody back to the office. We're working with Amazon, they're bringing everybody back to the office. But as these people return, they're like, you know what? This worked for me before I went home for COVID, but it doesn't work for me right now. So how do we address that? So our clients have big questions, and these questions are driving our research. They come from CEOs, they come from the Chief Human Resources Office. So we get these questions from many sectors of the organization. One is, how does my office become a destination? It's great to have a policy, but it's much better if you have a destination that people actually get something out of. How does my workplace inspire collaboration to drive innovation? That's the number one question we get from CEOs, and we have a new one we'll cover further on. What are the right investments to build our future? And what mix of experiences should my team have? And then the final one, and this is what we're going to really focus on today, how does my office move beyond relevant, right? Remember 2 years ago, everyone's like, is the office dead? Is it going the way of the dodo bird? Is everybody going to continue to work from their kitchen and living room? No, we know now that the office is relevant, but it needs to be more. It needs to be impactful. So how do we shift from this intuition that we know it needs to change to a data-driven, informed vantage point that's completely different to really reflect where we need to go as design professionals? So starting with data is how we approach all of these answers. We have our North Star, we develop beautiful spaces, we have our vision, but we always start with the data because the data doesn't lie. So in 2000, for 18 years now, Gensler has had the Global Workplace Survey. It didn't start global. It started in 2005 in the UK. So this has been around since I joined Gensler in 2007. In 2006, we rolled it out in the US. And you can see as it's progressed over time, the most people were right before COVID in 2020 with 20,000 people. Last year, it was 16,809 global people that took this survey. A few things about it. You have to be a firm of at least 100 people. These are not Gensler spaces purposefully because we want to see what the generic experience is. And so we ask really leading questions about how they do their work. So there are three key findings from the last workplace survey that we did. One is that the physical workplace is absolutely not kept pace with what our workers need. Two, our workforce is craving new experiences. That's the number one thing that we're going to touch on today. And three is that great workplaces enable in-person connectivity. Most of our innovation happens with our teams. We want our teams to connect. So how do we move now from intuition to information? How do we use this data, and how does it inform our designs? That's what we're going to talk about today. So what drives office attendance? When people come to work, what do they come to work to do? A spoiler alert, this is US data, because we're going to cover data from other countries further on, and it got some fun points there. People come to work in the United States to focus on their work. But then if you look at it, look at scheduled in-person team meetings, socializing with my colleagues, sitting with my team, in-person client meetings, and impromptu face-to-face time. That's a massive percentage of their time. We come to work to meet with our team, to learn from them, to collaborate, to innovate. And so we've got to really think not just about the workstation. I mean, we all need to have the work point, right? But what are the other activities that are happening? And then what are we supposed to be achieving with those interactions? Because they're different for every company. A couple of things here that are really interesting. The top little box on the right there. But for professionals that are early in their career, between 18 and 29 years old, the third reason that they come to work is to be near managers, to be learning from the team. And so post-COVID, it's interesting. Those are the people that we thought would be the hardest to get back to the office. They want to come back. They want to learn from you. They want to be mentored, and they want to be brought along so they can exceed in their profession. So this is really interesting because the two kind of areas I want you to focus on, first of all, starting with 39% of our time is spent working alone. Acoustics. Acoustics are incredibly critical in the workplace because of that 39%, 74% is focus time. Hard to focus with a lot of noise unless you're using music to do something creative, which is fine, but you're still focused, right? So they've got to be able to have a really controlled environment. The second is that 6 out of 10 meetings hosted in the office are hybrid. Our office was designed post-COVID, the Gensler Miami office, and right now, if you're sitting on a call with 20 people yelling in the background, I've got a number of amazing structural engineers here that we work with, and I'm sure that you guys could tell us, yeah, your team is a little loud when we're on the phone with you. They're hybrid, so that means that we have to infuse technology, acoustics, the way people work. So look at that kind of, it's a greenish blue bar at the bottom. 41% working with others, 13% working with others virtually, and 28% working with others in person. Rarely do we have any of these meetings without someone remote. They're either remote because they're a client, they're remote because they're a team member that's traveling. So this goes to, we talked about acoustics, now we're talking about acoustics and technology, and I can say that even our own office here needs to, be modified to keep up with this. So the one takeaway that we try to bring to our clients when we're talking to them about their investments and their decisions is that incremental change is not enough. We've got to just let go of all of our thoughts and really think differently. The second is, and this is kind of the mess slide to me, so if you look at workplace in 2008 and you look at the workplace in 2025, our employees are like, meh, yeah, I go to work, but it's not that exciting. It's not that great. It doesn't do much for me. We have to address that. We're being disrupted. How many of you within the last, say, 2 weeks have read an article on AI and how it's going to impact the workforce, the world, your career? Just a show of hands, how many people? 50%. So 50% of us, that's in 2 weeks. Probably if we go to a month, we'd get the whole group. We know that we are going to be disrupted, and other people, when they know that change is coming, are fearful. Not this room, not this group. We're creatives, and so when we know we're going to have to change, when we know that we're going to be disrupted, we lean in. And so this is an exciting time for us. Time to let go of the meh. So another thing that we're seeing, we talked about the hybrid and in-person meetings, and we're doing the Cinch headquarters globally. They're owned by brothers that live in New York City, and local team wanted something that was really kind of yesterday. The two owners flew in and said, I hate it. I don't like any of it. Not what you want as a designer, but they said, I want it to be totally open. And we had to tell them, listen, we know that you want totally open, but when people are having hybrid meetings, that's not right. And so when you see this transition from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic of open to private, private has kind of a negative connotation, right? Like it's mine, don't come in, you can't have it. Private is more acoustical and the ability to focus and the ability to take care of our clients and our teams in a way that is effective. So the switch from open to private is really about that hybrid work and being able to engage effectively with people. So one of the things that shocked us the most, because everyone wants to, collaboration, innovation. How many people have heard that term used in, let's say the past month? All of us. Everyone wants to collaborate. Everyone wants to innovate. We talked about the fact that we're being disrupted. We've got to do things differently. We know change is coming. So when we talk to people about, we thought it would be really complex what they needed to collaborate. They just said we need space available. We're like, well, that's easy. We can do that. We can give you collaboration space. We need to think about how we do it, but we can provide it. And then it goes down comfort and ergonomics. We talked about acoustic and privacy, having it convenient. Visual privacy and confidentiality is important. So it's really kind of a whole microcosm of how we make people collaborate. But again, we love the data. We were shocked that the #1 item wasn't some really deep technical term, but it was just, I don't know, give us some space. We'll collaborate. The other thing that was our second key finding that's informing our designs is that only 14% of the global workforce desire a corporate workplace experience. They're craving new ones, and we'll talk about what those are. So if you look at the current workplace experience, you've got really 39 or 40%, almost half of it dedicated to a business hub. So right now, 5% is a nature retreat. We know from our research that when you have biophilia, when you have good air quality, the actual amount of wakeful time and focus time goes up, and the amount of sickness, lack of focus, all of these things go down. So if you want a creative workforce, introduce nature, it's medically proven. 10% residential, now we're 13%. 13% collaborative, we're 13% in the ideal workplace. It was 7% creative lab, and now it's 12% creative lab. Coffee shop, 9 to 10, not that much change. Clubhouse, 7 to 9. It's really that desire for authenticity. When you think of a clubhouse, you think of the cool kids, right? The cool kids have a clubhouse and they decorate it with their own way, and you know who they are right away because you go into their clubhouse. People want that authenticity. They want that understanding of who is my company. And then boutique hotel, 4 to 8, so we're seeing that go up quite a bit. And then library is staying consistent at 7. These are important terms because these are going to be what, when we talk about the spaces, these are going to inform all of our design decisions. So the interesting thing is that when you look across professions, these move around a little bit. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but there are two things that are maybe comforting and not too fascinating, but I think it's great that the legal teams, only 9% of them want a creative lab. I personally don't want my attorney getting too creative with my legal defense. I really want them to win, and that's always precedent. So, some of this is not surprising. The fact that technology is the lowest library at 7%. You print something in technology and it's obsolete the day later. So again, some of this tracks, but it is fun to see the slight differences across different professions. So the other thing that is not surprising, but just we need to keep it at the forefront as we're designing these spaces, great workplaces play a crucial role to effectively enable working together in person. If I'm, again, 18 to 29, I am coming to work in person with the leaders in this room because I'm learning from you. You're going to define my future. You're going to help me when I'm struggling with something. And so that in-person space, especially across demographics, is really key to successful workplaces. So the interesting thing here is 68% of the respondents either were a high score or a very high score regarding if my workplace connects me to the culture of my company. And we've heard how important culture is, right? The absolute race for talent, retention, people, again, innovating and working together. So they understand where you're trying to go as a company by being in the workplace and getting to know your culture. Again, key for success of corporations and individuals. So this is a fun one because all of the people that we work with in Costa Rica, Colombia, our LATAM friends, were very proud of the fact that focusing on work was not the #1 reason people came back to work. They're like, no, man, we like to chat. We like to hang out. You Americans, you want to just come and focus on work. You're boring, So it's kind of interesting that you see these differences across country. We do design for a global workforce, so it is really important that we understand that. So it's time to think differently about the workplace. We've touched on these, so we're just going to go forward here quickly with the project. So I'm going to grab my cheat sheet here and show you some of the images and how these designed. So this is the Starwood headquarters, a hospitality firm here in Miami Beach. And they really wanted this to be a nature preserve and a business hub. Barry Sternlicht, the CEO, again, this is a massive company, chose every single tree that is on this project. So you see how we brought nature into the design. Again, every single decision is made around what they gave us as their design brief. The use of wood, the indoor-outdoor. 545 Wynn, this is a office building designed by Gensler in Wynwood. This is where our office is, and it is awesome. Love going to work there every day. The three things that they gave us as our design brief was Clubhouse. This used to be a zipper factory. So on the wall there, it's all old jeans and t-shirts, and it's turned into a wallpaper. It's cool and funky because we're in Wynwood and we're creatives. Also the idea of library. They wanted people that chose to lease in this building feel that they were in, again, a special place that was really curated personally for them. And then the third is nature retreat. So we have this beautiful, you have the size of the garage, which is always larger than the size of the building. So the fact that you can be outside, and actually our group of professionals that I would say are, from the first year to the 10th year in their career, they go up here every single day almost for lunch. And people that feel that they have a friend at work, you have much higher retention than people that don't feel that they have a friend or feel very isolated within the workforce. And then this is in the Grand Caymans. This is a fintech company. And the idea for this was a combination of boutique hotel, creative lab, and a collaborative hub. So right away, the boutique hotel, the idea of when you come in, you receive service. Here, a breakfast is set out. This is a big part of their company culture. So every day you come in and you have, the idea that you're being served. We're taking care of you because you're defining the future of our company. The idea of collaboration and creativity, so the spaces were designed with ultimate flexibility. Here you see kind of a teaming and innovation room that can open up to a larger group gathering. That's critical because if you're covering as a fintech confidential information, you can close that room off, the doors have drop sills. So we're really purposeful about technology, confidentiality, how this space is utilized, but the fact that it can open up and be flexible means that your investment is going further in how you can utilize your space. And then the third idea is the idea of collaboration. Now we did bring biophilia all throughout the space, but that was just because it was in the Caymans and we felt it was important. It wasn't really what the client drove us towards. And then the collaboration. So every neighborhood had an area that they could collaborate in because as a fintech, it's really important that they were bringing in new technologies and bringing in new clients all of the time. And so every neighborhood was purposely put together with not just focused desks, but also areas for the team to get together and ideate. So this is a Concilio Customer Experience Center here in Miami. Concilio is a consulting firm for legal and corporations. And so this is where their clients can come in and really work with them on solving their problems together. So this was a creative lab #1, a collaboration hub, create and collab together. And then #3 was the idea of the coffee shop or the bar, which you see off to the right-hand side. So it's set up with the screen so they can go through, multi-channel content at the same time as a group in a very relaxed environment. So they weren't so formal as sitting at a table. They thought it was really important that their clients would take on tough projects. Sometimes when they're consulting because they're solving a problem for a client, that if they were relaxed, they would be in a better mindset to solve these difficult problems together. There we go. So this is the bar. Again, the idea of taking care of your clients, serving them coffee through an end-of-the-day beverage. The different touch points. And then this is something that we're seeing much more of in the workplace. We are all needing to be hyper connected. Thoughts are changing faster. Our disruptions are coming in daily. We need to be able to, within our organizations and outside of our organizations, communicate at a much more rapid pace. So the idea of having a green room so you can have blog postings, you can have culture content that maybe is going out to a whole company if a company is going in a different direction. So we did this here at Concilio. Much more common, and it really is around the culture of communication. We all love cool tech things, but that's not why this is here. It's really here as a tool to communicate more quickly what's happening at maybe the corporate level or the innovation level. And then this one is a fun one to end on. We talk a lot after COVID about resilience in the workplace. And so this is the Miami-Dade Emergency Operations Center. So the three things here, absolutely a collaboration hub. And the reason that we say that is because this is where the mayor of Miami-Dade will come, the chief of police, fire, the Homeland Security is here. So every department that matters, it's got 9 stories of parking. And so it's, I've never had a list of parking things like this in my life. We have boats, we have inflatables, we have the big vans that go out. So anything that you need to take care of people after an event is in this building. We have fuel for 7 days, water for 7 days. People can sleep here. So they come here and they work here through we call it, they come here in a blue sky because they know an event's coming. The event is the black sky, and then the gray sky is when you're really taking care of people. And it's so special because they said, our job is making sure on the worst day of your life that you're not alone. And so, man, what an inspiring workplace, what a group that you really want to take care of. And so their 3 themes were, as I said, collaboration, business, technology, and making all of this work incredibly important. You see the big radio tower there, you see the helipad, really specialized technical things. Trying to make it attractive as well, even though it's a big workhorse of a building. And then the third is residential. So everyone that's here will stay here in the building until it's after the event. And focus on technology, that sort of thing. Again, it's a workhorse of a building. And so that's it. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. And I think Nigel and I are going to have a conversation now.
You raced through it.
I did race through it. Well, hopefully not too fast. But and the workplace survey, we share it with people. So while it is a proprietary survey, you can go on Gensler's website if you're interested, and you can look at it. So it's something that we take very seriously, transforming people's everyday lives, and data is a great way to really understand making decisions.
Well, of course I found what you had to share with us very interesting. And if I understood well, it seems to me that you were using certain archetypes as narratives to give a framework, an aesthetic and atmospheric framework for different kinds of corporate environments. The last thing on the list would be that the narrative would be an office. It seemed like it was anything except an office. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and I think that's the best takeaway, right, from COVID, that there was a perception before COVID that if you let your people have too much fun, they would just get wildly out of control and no work would happen. And we all went home for 2 years and we kept the economy going. Everyone in the world went home. Everyone in the world was productive. And so that kind of agreement between employee and employer that you need to be in an office or a workplace to achieve work was completely shattered. So now we have to think, well, what is the environment that we are going to get the best out of our employees? And that's why I love the list of archetypes that are completely outside of, I need a desk.
Well, I had kind of the library. That was very, lots of books. And the library is relatively quiet. You explained how quiet and peace and facilitates work. Nature retreat was another one, but it was for a different client. I also noted that there were quite a few of the ones you showed had a feeling of inside and outside, as though they're, which in the Florida environment, you can do that. You can make a place which is neither super enclosed nor super open. Is that another?
Well,
You couldn't do that in New York, really,
well,
could you?
it's well, very interesting. I'm glad you asked. This is a great question. The way that we lease buildings now has changed, and they've included the balcony in what you can charge as a landlord rent for. So balconies are now included, and you would think that that would only impact Florida, but Chicago is actually taking away, because it's still leasable, they're taking away the curtain wall and bringing that inboard a little bit, so they have balcony spaces because people desire that connection with nature so much. For those of us, many of you I'm sure have been to Chicago, it's nice for about 3 months a year. It's easy to go inside now, but it's frozen the rest of the year, and people still are taking that space away and making it inside outside. So it's not just in the tropical environment, it's really global that's happening. It's really interesting.
Another one that you mentioned, boutique hotel, which I thought is quite close to a house.
Yes.
Have you ever made an office that's like a house?
It's really interesting because the Starwood on the inside, and unfortunately, a lot of these spaces are very confidential when it gets to the C-suite. But Mr. Sternlicht has an amazing art collection, and these CEOs, they work really, really long hours. So he not only wanted his space to feel like home, he brought his private art collection, and we designed like a hallway where he shows the private art collection. And so when you come to his office, you sit in a couch that feels like a home. You see his art collection in a beautiful, curated environment. And he is a hospitality CEO, right? So he is trying to communicate the sense of home or peace and calm through his space. So it becomes, I know these they sound like archetypes that might not be relevant, but when you have that cultural alignment, the relevance is amplified, and then the impact of the space is amplified, which, at the beginning I said, we don't want our workplace to be relevant, we want it to be impactful.
Well, but with a home, when you go to somebody's home, you're usually on your best behavior, aren't you? You don't behave like a kind of bawdy guest. You
Yes.
kind of behave, you respect the fact that the owner of the house is inviting you into their environment. And I guess the same is true if the metaphor, the narrative is the house. The question is, whose house? So how does that work with I think you're also telling us that you want the people who are working in these environments to feel as though it is their environment, belongs to them. They have their stakeholders in the place that they work in. Is that true, or could there be a conflict there?
I think if it's done well, it should feel like everyone's house. We have, I have friends in the room that we're delivering projects with together, and you get to a point when the client's in the office that they're making their own coffee and getting stuff out of the refrigerator, and that's awesome because they feel that not only is it a home for the employees or a place that the employees are empowered and belong, but they also feel that they're empowered and belong. And we often have, because we work with developers on large complex projects, they often will say, hey, I have to take a call, can I stay in your office? And they do. They're making coffee, talking to the team, and it's great. It's everyone's home.
But does it happen sometimes that people are in a work environment that they feel so kind of relaxed and empowered that they stop thinking about other people? And I give you an example. I have a friend who is a director at a leading PR company in London. And she has a terrible time with her employees who don't seem to have any regard for respecting the environment. So they'll leave their lunch half eaten on the table so the whole place stinks out with people's kind of microwaved food. Or they're wasteful in the way they use office resources. They don't have a kind of, especially the young people, don't seem to care about the sustainability of the ethos of the working environment. You didn't mention anything about sustainability or the use of materials or the respect of other people's spaces. But I wonder whether this is a problem. Because of course it is about what people want and where they feel most comfortable, but there's also another boundary where people feel so entitled that they think they can do what the hell they like in an office environment. Is that true?
Oh, wow, that's a lot to unpack here. So we, as a company, have taken all finishes out of our library that are not carbon neutral. So when you work with us, you're getting, without saying anything, you're getting a very sustainable design. The FIS headquarters up in Jacksonville was LEED Gold and LEED Platinum and WELL Gold. And there were some things from WELL, like it's just the bus system didn't come close enough to the building, right? That we couldn't get platinum. So the people now realize that their workplace is an engine for success. And when you talk about the youngest team members, we were very curious to see, back in the day, does a workplace tie to the income of a company, the success of a company? And we actually found a direct line. One of the questions was, do you work for an innovative company? So it was a scale of, I want to say, 1 to 7. The people, the employees that self-identified that they worked for innovative companies, so that was a score of over 4.5. Those were also the companies that did the best financially. And so we further unpacked, okay, well, if you're doing the best financially and your people think that you're innovative, they were also investing a lot in culture. And I think your questions come straight to culture. I said once for my team to come back to the office, and I haven't had to announce it since. They're coming back. We don't have dishes because I don't want to. We have recyclables because I don't want to deal with, someone washing dishes. So it's a part of our culture. So I guess my question would just be back is, there's anything negative is also an opportunity. So I think there's an opportunity there to lean in on, well, how do we redefine the culture so they have ownership? They feel like this is my office and I don't want to leave it that way. So we do a lot of signs. We thank people a lot for good behavior. When we have our all hands, we celebrate good behavior, and I think that's an important cultural point, because if we're like, wow, you guys have really kept things however you want them, clean or sustainable or whatever, I think celebrating that as a culture is important. So I think the answer from our experience with companies really lies in culture and empowerment.
And do you take part in that discussion about the day-to-day cultural environment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we go back in a year and say, well, how is this working for you? And so it's when you talk about cleanliness, we take a score in their existing workplace for how they function, and then it's a workplace performance index, and then we take a score after they've been there for about 9 months. And obviously, if we say we're going to be a data firm, we've got to use the data and we've got to be honest with ourselves. So most of the scores go up by 10 points between their existing space and their newly designed space. The one time it didn't was a trading floor for Deutsche Bank, and traders don't get up from their desk. And it was in, I want to say in Paris, and it was such a small space, and they were putting so many traders in there that they took away the garbage cans and put the garbage cans at the end of the row. If you're doing a $1 billion trade, you are not going to get up and walk to the end of the row and put your banana in the garbage can. You're going to throw it on the floor. So that score went down because people were throwing their food wrappers and their bananas and everything on the floor during the day because traders don't get up from their desk. So you have to absolutely get deep into the details.
So you've got to put yourselves into the shoes of the people who are working in that environment.
Yes.
So on the one hand, for them to respect the collective environment, but at the same time be not for their responsibility is not to obstruct their work.
Exactly. I mean, is it that you have more ability, with the rubbish bin right next to where the lunch is, so it's done beautifully, but it's right there and they have to walk by it, right? So I mean, we really drill down on an incredible amount of detail of tell me about your workday. Again, we're trying to empower everyone from their first day on the job till they're, the CEO. We did this, renovated 750,000 square feet for Citibank in Tampa, and there were two things that happened that were so much fun. So the site president, there were 10,000 people here. It was a massive campus. The site president used to be in this like Taj Mahal of an office, a big office and a big boardroom, and Citibank took those Taj Mahals away, and they gave the site presidents, which is kind of like a local CEO, he's in charge of 10,000 people, a workplace, and it was, it was dedicated because you can't have your CEO walking around with a laptop trying to find a desk. While it was dedicated, everything in there was flexible, and so he actually got a locker, and he's like, I love this. He goes, I haven't talked to
a locker before.
A locker to put his stuff in, and he's like, I haven't talked to a 25-year-old in like 20 years. He goes, I'm having so much fun. I go to a locker, I put my stuff in, I talk to all the 25-year-olds, I find out what it's actually like to work for me, and he goes, I'm having so much fun. And then conversely, a young man came off of the elevator, walked into his new floor, and said, wow, since when did we work for a cool company? This is great. And we were like, yes. They wanted to, and it's an incredible, when you talk about a tech firm, everyone nowadays is a tech firm. Everyone is competing for the exact same talent. And when you're trying to hire the best and the brightest, that culture really does need to come through. And so when employees walk in and say, I love this, it's a real tool for hiring and hiring the best and the brightest.
And I switch the last question really, but switch the conversation to the furniture you use, particularly the chairs that people sit on. Do you have extreme ideas about what is a good piece of furniture to work at? Or do you think that people will adapt? So we've talked about different narrative environments, say. So it might be that the furniture in a library might be different from the furniture in a conventional office. And we all know there's a lot of research that's put into the comfort of furniture, very similar to what you've done in the environment. I imagine that each of the furniture manufacturers that are making office furniture have put an immense amount of research and money into defining the perfect chair. Do you subscribe to the perfect office chair, or do you try to avoid having what every other office seems to have in it? Would you go for difference or conformity?
Well, this is just a brilliant question because when we do a corporate headquarters, we do a chair fair. And so we actually bring in very high performance chairs, and we let them sit in them, and we let the people that work at that company score them. And so you take these chairs and you move them around, and the finance team and the HR team and the whatever other team, and they score. And we absolutely support each team selecting their own chair. Sometimes people have felt so strongly about it that we bought different chairs for different departments. We try not to do that. But when we talk about, I love the question around ergonomics and furniture. There is a best solution, which is something that's anthropomorphic, supports technology, and allows us to do our best work. So just an example, we did this in our own office, and it was a huge mistake. We had a petite designer that chose a stationary chair that had a V in it for a work point that was a touchdown work point, right? And people touched down there, they got comfortable, they were working there for 4 hours. If I'm a 6'5" person, it actually squeezed people's hips in, that this little tiny chair that sloped, and so we had to, we talked about
large people. Then.
It wasn't made for people with a larger frame, and so we had to actually get rid of those chairs and come in with a chair that was ergonomic. So while there's not one chair or one desk or one whatever, when we're mixing, the idea of the club and the hospitality and the library, all of these different things, we still have to make sure that our design is ticking the box on ergonomics, technology, all of the things that empower individuals.
But, you know, flying in to Florida yesterday on the British Airways direct Heathrow to Miami flight, I was intrigued by how many different outfits the cabin crew had. There were ladies with skirts and pants and kind of wearing a gilet, like a waistcoat, or a cardigan with no sleeves. There seemed to be no end to the variations. In other words, everyone's different. So how does your office culture take into account that? Are you allowed to have teddy bears next to your screen in your offices, or a kind of little signs of the personal? And of course it reflects on the furniture, because as you said, somebody who's got a wide beam is not going to fit into or feel uncomfortable in, you know,
Yeah, I love it. So
conformity is not necessarily the answer to
yeah,
making people feel comfortable.
it really goes back to the culture of the company. So I'm going to use a couple of really important local examples here. We just did the Ryder Global Headquarters in Coral Gables, and Ryder's is a national logistics company. I mean, I think people that are based in the States have probably seen them. They have the Ryder logo on the truck, and we think of them as trucks. They actually distribute all of the Gatorade and like half, the eastern half of the United States. So if you've had a Gatorade in the eastern half of the United States, it was on a Ryder truck. So they're logistics. They scraped 3 office buildings in Doral, Florida, got 2 floors in Coral Gables. Their employees come in once a month, but they're always working with logistical people around the world. So they're not working with people in the office. They come in and meet with their team once a month, and they love their headquarters. Conversely, when we're working with either utilities or financial companies, so we did the FIS Global Headquarters in Jacksonville and the Jabil Global Headquarters in St. Pete. It's a little bit different, but then we also did the another financial one I'm blanking on, but TECO, that's a utility company. So companies that have like either financial compliance laws or utility compliance laws, they demand a desk for every single person, because if there's a compliance issue which makes it required that when they're working on confidential information, they have to be in a protected workplace. They can't have their team distributed and go home. So it's not that one is right or one is wrong when you talk about all of the different options, but even when we're in a situation where everyone is assigned a seat, they need different work modes. I don't know how many of you have a neurodiverse relative, but it's important that we understand that there's a much higher degree of neurodiverse people in our workforce than we thought. And so they may need to be in not a large office, but just in a touchdown space for one person to really get their focused work done. So if 39% of the time we're focused at work, and 74% of that focus time needs to be, really intensively focused. We do need to take that into account. And I'll end on, we have a team member that leads healthcare in our office, and she went to healthcare convention, and the gentleman that was leading a certain conference gave people owls. It's like knowledge and trust, and he gave those to people that he said had a big impact on his career. And she's a grown woman. I mean, she's got 2 college-age kids, right? She was so proud of this owl that it's sitting still on her desk. And and we want to celebrate our individual people. I mean, at the end of the day, while it can be, we've done NVIDIA headquarters, like a huge company, but the success always comes down to the person, and letting that person express their culture is important. Verizon is completely unassigned, so they have boards where they can put up pictures of their dogs and celebrate their kids or their newborn, whatever it is. So I think it's important to really understand that no matter the size of the corporation, it's built one person at a time, and each individual success is the success of the workplace.
Dawn, thank you so much for bringing us into your world. It's very interesting indeed. Thank you.
Well,
So much.
it was an honor to take the afternoon with you, and thank you so much.
And I
for being
believe
here.
that your husband's coming to take you on an electric scooter.
So-
your next meeting at 4 o'clock. So you better get going.
Fun fact, I have a big presentation. We're doing a 1,000-key hotel in Jamaica, and new, so it wasn't impacted by the storm. And I present at 4. So literally, my husband's going to be outside with an e-bike, so I could go get on the call at 4 o'clock. But thank you all so much. This was nice to spend time together.
Thank you.